أصدقائنا، أهلا بكم في إضاءة جديدة في عين على التقنية، وإضاءة سريعة حول انتشار الأخبار بالنسبة للموتويت والناطق. في الحقيقة الاثنين الماضي بتاريخ 21 يوليو استضافت قناة استرالية قناة استرالية استضافت الناطق، واسم البرنامج فوكال بوينت، وفيجن أستراليا راديو. مقدم البرنامج السيد بيتر غريكو قام باستضافة الناطق، وكنت موجود مع زميل آخر من سايت اند ساوند في المملكة المتحدة السيد ستيوارت لور، وتحدثنا عن مواضيع كثيرة من أهمها إطلاق الموتويت. الآن الكفيف الأسترالي يتعرف على الموتويت لجهاز البولاريس. جهاز البولاريس منتشر في أستراليا أيضا. أصدقائنا، هذه القناة سأقوم بتحديث أو وضع المستجدات بشكل دوري. قد لا أرسل الرابط على الواتساب وغيره من وسائل التواصل معكم، وبالتالي ترددوا على هذه القناة، قناة عين على التقنية على اليوتيوب في الناطق، من أجل معرفة كل ما هو جديد. فلنستمع للمقابلة، هي حوالي 15 دقيقة أو أكثر قليلا، وسنعود لكم بعد أن تنتهي المقابلة لنلخصها لكم. ابقوا
Good evening and welcome to Focal Point here on Vision Australia Radio, 1197 AM in Adelaide, and across the Vision Australia Radio Network, varadio.org, also VA Radio Digital, and through the TuneIn Radio app. Peter Greco on behalf of Philip Vanderpeer and Wendy McDougall, welcoming you to Focal Point. On the program tonight, we'll catch up with Carl Anderson from Able Australia, giving us a bit of a perspective on the pandemic and how it's impacting upon people who are deafblind, and also people who are deaf, and particularly with having to wear masks in much of Victoria, what sort of impact that might have. Also then go international and catch up with Stuart Lawler from Sight and Sound in Ireland, and Oda Hazim, who is with a company called NATTIQ, N-A-T-T-I-Q, doing some great work with hymns and maybe some good news, particularly if you like following Twitter. If you're listening through 1197 AM in Adelaide at 8 o'clock for your listening pleasure, Matthew Layton will be here with Studio One. Two gentlemen that we haven't spoken to before, and indeed who are miles away and miles apart. But let's catch up with, first of all, Stuart Lawler from Sight and Sound in Ireland. Stuart, great to catch up. Thanks for your time.
It's great to be here, Peter. Thanks for the chance to come on your programme.
And from a company called NATTIQ, I think that's how you pronounce it, Oda Hazim. Oda, thank you for your time when you're in the Middle East, in the UAE.
That's right. We're outside of Dubai, about 10 kilometers south of Dubai. I'm glad to be here.
Terrific. Well, Stuart, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Sight and Sound and what you do and what your organisation does.
Yeah, so Sight and Sound are an assistive technology company. We've been around for about 40 years, Peter. In the UK, we opened here in Ireland. We opened our office in Ireland in 2018, and I look after managing our services over here in Ireland. And I'm also head of content creation in Sight and Sound. So I support the creation of webinars and podcasts and I suppose all sorts of things like that to keep in touch with our customers. And I suppose that has been particularly important over the last 4 or so months when we haven't been able to do face-to-face training. So we would represent some of the biggest brands in the sort of assistive technology industry, like Vispero, for example, and hymns. And I suppose we provide a range of services and supports for people in all aspects of life to make sure that technology is not a barrier to them being able to do whatever they want.
And Oda, for you, tell us a bit about NATTIQ and a bit about what you do, because as I said, I'd not heard of you till a few days ago when I saw an email from Stuart. So who are you and what do you do?
Well, I started NATTIQ Technologies when I was in the U.S. I'm a dual citizen. I'm a Jordanian U.S. citizen. And I had my own company in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
building custom-built laptops. And one day, a blind gentleman walked in and asked for a custom-built laptop. I was very intrigued how he could use the laptop. I installed JAWS for him. And I started thinking maybe one day I'll be able to put things together so I can do the same thing for blind Arabic-speaking people in the Middle East. That happened 2002. We hooked up with Dolphin Computer Access. We localized together HAL software, so it was Supernova and HAL. And we started doing Arabic, and then I decided, well, since I'm going to be serving blind people in the Middle East, I have to move out there. So I moved out to Dubai 2002, and been running Natic Technologies ever since, now 18 years. And just a few years ago, a couple of years, I thought for us, specifically in the Middle East, there's not much of a future for just bringing boxes, even localizing them and selling them. So we took a big step toward development and manufacturing, and we're doing quite well. I think in the future you will be seeing many of our inventions.
Okay, we'll look forward to hearing more about that. Stuart, you put me on to Natic, or because I know you're through the Sight and Sound webcast that you do, you're going to talk about the fact that they're working closely with HIMS, who of course many of our listeners would know about, with the Browsets range of products.
That's right, Peter. And Auda, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that. But yeah, we got in touch, or we heard about Natic. Actually, we've been talking to Auda for probably over a year, really impressed with what those guys are doing in the UAE. And a couple of weeks ago, they've been working for quite a while on an application called Motowiet for the Polaris. So I suppose one of the challenges with Polaris, well, one of the great things, one of the challenges also, is because it's an Android system. Sometimes you can have challenges when you're running mainstream applications where they may be a little more unwieldy, or they may be a little harder to use. And for new users, I think this is really important, but also for users who just want an efficient and fast way of getting something done. And I think Twitter is one of those things, isn't it, where you kind of get information instantly, you process it, and that's it. Or you take part in the conversation, and that's it. So what the guys have done is created this native Polaris application called Motowiet, and we are, well, at time of recording, we're holding a webinar tomorrow where Auda and his colleagues are going to tell us all about it. And I'm excited about this because it's the first native Polaris app I've seen, you know, that's not being made by HIMS. And I think there's lots of potential for the future. It's very exciting.
Well, Stuart, at the risk of sounding competitive, we might try and get in before you and find out a bit more before you do. But Ada, tell us a bit about it. So why Motowiet? And I guess we should point out it's for the Polaris exclusively. So people listening, if they've got other devices you can't access or you can't download Motowiet on another device, is specifically for the Polaris?
It is specifically for the Polaris, but we've been getting some so many requests now that people that when people hear about what we're doing, and I think in the future we'll see more applications. We're open for other format, but we have such a great relationship with HIMS, such a great company. We been dealing with them for the last 15, 16 years, as a matter of fact. And the reason we started with developing for the Polaris is we have a customer, a very close customer, who's a scholar. And he would always send me messages saying, you know, Polaris is great, it's helping me a lot, but I can't access Twitter. And I have quite a followers following me. And so he kept on requesting the
demanding. You were going to say demanding, weren't you?
It's true. So that's why we started with I grabbed one of my developers and he said, yeah, sure, we can do that.
So how challenging is that? Because the Polaris is a note taker that I guess, you know, in the overall scheme of things, not a lot of people are going to be using. How challenging is that to sort of make it viable for you as an organisation?
Well, the challenge came from the lack of tools, the lack of resources, to develop for the Polaris. You have to have library files or an SDK. When we had the U2, I'm sure you're familiar with it from HEMS as well, they had an SDK and we had a Natic store. And our customers just loved it. I mean, that's what differentiated us among our competition. So when the Polaris was introduced, we were very frustrated because we couldn't have, it wasn't new. So they had to build an SDK. So I have, what makes us different, I'm very fortunate. I have young and creative developers that, want to get something out and have blind people use their development, basically not in the Middle East, but in the entire world.
Stuart, you're a person with a vision impairment yourself. You have lived experience of blindness?
Yeah, that's right, Peter. I'm totally blind. I was born blind. My eye condition is retinoblastoma. So, I've been blind since birth, and I suppose I've been using all this technology for a very long time. And one of the really interesting things, I suppose, when you work in this sector is that you see these changes all the time, and I think Natic have really kind of shown that here we are bringing this to the next level. And something as simple as Twitter, which, to be quite honest, up to a couple of weeks ago, I wouldn't have used Twitter on the Polaris for any length of time because it wasn't an efficient way for me to get access to the information. Now I'm doing it all the time.
That's a pretty powerful endorsement. What about as far as the practicalities of it? Ida, you talked about the team that you've got. Have they got vision impairment, or are they blind, or are they just go-getters that want to sort of make a difference in the world?
The challenge here for blind people in the Middle East, they can only get into certain fields when they go to school. So you can't find developers that are blind. Now they're starting to. No, they're fully sighted, and they just love to work in this field and helping the people like with visual loss to gain their independence and privacy through developing solutions for them.
So how much is it, if you like, customer driven? You talked about the gentleman that was pestering you, demanding for you to do something with Twitter. You're obviously very responsive to customers.
What makes us different, really, we learned a lot from our customers, Peter. That's why I welcome invitations such as Stuart's invitation to come and be a part of a webinar for his customers, because we collect so much information and requests, basically, and we weed it out. We see what's feasible and what's not. You would be amazed how fast we can turn an idea into a prototype, and we're talking about a couple of weeks usually.
Is that because you're, if you like, I'm not sure if you like the term, but a boutique company? So you're not like a mainstream company that's trying to produce a few products on a mass basis. You're more boutique, if that's a fair term to use.
I don't mind the term. It's, when you have a boss, you're so limited. I hate bureaucracy. I like, when people say, wait, I just don't like that. I remember. Well, maybe I can't disclose this, but somebody was interested in carrying the Motoit, and but they needed the time to make decisions. They said, no, I don't want to. I want to go to market solo because I don't like to wait.
So you're an action man.
Yes.
You like action. Stuart, do you want to give us a bit of an idea of if people have got a Polaris, what the sort of process is to install it? So I think there's a 6-day free trial, and then there's a fee to pay for it as well, if you decide to go ahead with it.
Yeah, there is a 6-day free trial, and so you can download the app. Obviously, you can try it out, and then you can do your transaction at present through Natic. So you can pay the fee, and I'm not exactly sure right now what the cost of the app is out. I'm not sure if you have pricing in UK pounds or euro or.
We have it in the dollar, in the US dollar. It's $15 per license. Yes.
Okay.
For the end user.
So again, it's a really good price for an app that, if you're on a Polaris and you're wanting access to your Twitter, you're probably going to use something like this really frequently. And you have, as you say, the 6-day trial, so you can really get your hands on it and try it out first.
Okay. Well, I think it's about 70 US cents to an Australian dollar at the moment. So people can do the conversion. You listen to Focal Point here on Vision Australia Radio, 1197 AM on the Vision Australia Radio Network, on VA Radio Digital, and also through the TuneIn radio app. Stuart, tell us a little bit about life in Ireland for people blind or vision impaired. I'm thinking about things like access to technology, employment. What are things like?
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of funny. If you'd asked me that question 4 months ago, pre-COVID,
Yes.
maybe I would have answered it slightly differently. But yeah, look, I mean, Ireland is, we have a, I suppose in terms of people with vision impaired who are working, the numbers are low. They could always be better. I'd say there's about 60% unemployment amongst the blind, low vision people. In terms of access to technology, we have support from government for people to access technology in the workplace if they need to. And there is obviously support within school and college for people to have technology. I think that situation has certainly improved over the last 10 or so years. We always need more and we could always do better. And I think there's no doubt we're entering into a very challenging period in the next 2 or 3 years post-COVID. And I think that's not just here, that's right throughout the world.
Indeed.
And we're going to have to be creative in how we make use of the tools we have, the technology we have, and maximize, I think, the challenge for, I think, the funding bodies will be to maximize the budgets to make sure they can go as far as they can to as many people and that we get technology into the hands of as many people who need it, because you know, it's something that I suppose I see every day is the power that this thing can have into the right hands. And I think for people who are blind or have low vision, it is such an equalizer in terms of putting us on the same footing as everybody else.
Older, what about, you touched on the fact that youngsters who are blind or vision impaired, you know, getting an education, then maybe trying to get into app development, etc. It's pretty tough over there for people blind or vision impaired for employment as well?
Well, it depends where because we cover the entire region, all Arabic-speaking countries. So we're talking about 24 countries. We have segmented those countries into active and inactive and semi-active. So luckily we're in the Gulf region, the GCC. There are much more resources here. In the UAE, they're very progressive when it's coming to visually impaired people. They get lots of opportunities in education and career and jobs. So there are some government initiatives to train blind people and then place them into companies and organizations and government entities. So other parts of the Middle East are less fortunate, unfortunately, but the Gulf is very progressive in these issues.
The access to the companies that are providing technology, particularly for people blind or vision impaired, the US and Europe, would that
yeah, and Korea. I mean, Far East. Yeah. So we have like alliances and strategic partnerships with industry leaders throughout, and we've been working with many fine companies along the years.
What about as far as with the Polaris in particular? Anything that you're looking on or looking at for the future? I'm thinking, well, obviously Twitter's a start. Would Facebook be something you'd be considering?
That's what we revealed in the first webinar we did with HIMSS at the ACB. We disclosed that we started development for Facebook. And unfortunately, Facebook as a company is a bit more difficult to work with than Twitter for some obvious reasons. I mean, they've been in the news lately. There were some breaches of security, so they're putting so many firewalls now. So every time we have a task to accomplish, we have to send the results, and that takes sometimes over a week to get back to us and say, yeah, everything is good, proceed. So I think if it wasn't for the bureaucracies we're facing, I think we would have a beta to work with by now.
You need a direct line to Mark Zuckerberg.
Good luck.
Oh, I haven't got that number either. So what about the fact that, you know, being Android, I think Polaris runs on Android version 5. Is that going to be a hindrance to you? I think it's unlikely that the Polaris is going to be able to be updated as far as the version of Android it runs. Is that going to be a a challenging thing?
Well, it is, but there are there are many ways of and loopholes. We're being creative right now, but at a certain point in time, it's going to be really difficult to. So we're counting on the leadership of our friends at HIMSS to come up with some solutions soon.
Stuart, what about as far as the last 4 or 5 months in Ireland just generally goes? What's it been like? We were chatting before coming to air, and I'm in South Australia. We've actually been pretty lucky so far, but Victoria, another state in Australia, has had a dreadful run over the last week or so, 10 days. What about in Ireland? How's it been?
Yeah, well, I suppose our cases peaked in probably the 3rd week in April, and at that point there was a lot of people very sick. Our hospitals were quite busy, not overcrowded, but they were quite busy. We introduced some very strict lockdown measures over a period of time. Most people were working from home. I think it was a very challenging time for people because lots of people were either temporarily laid off or lost their jobs permanently. And we've come back to a certain degree, I suppose, in that our cases dropped, although they're starting to rise slightly again. And that's kind of inevitable when people start going back out and about. And I think a lot of this now is down to personal choice and taking risk and making calls on what you will or will not do, and making sure you don't put others at risk either. So, and I think for blind and people with blind and people who have maybe low sight as well, low vision, that there are particular challenges around things like social distancing and how to request help. So I think we're dealing, as is everybody else in the world, we're dealing with that and trying to navigate our ways in a very strange way that how much things have changed in just 5 or 6 months.
And what about in the Middle East, Aldo? What's it been like? A lot of media coverage. I guess the US, for example, in Australia, the US tends to dominate as far as international news goes. First it was China, then the US, but a little bit out of India. But we don't hear much about the Middle East in Australia.
When we talk about the Middle East, again, I think they did in general, they did a good job here in the UAE. I was very impressed. I mean, a country about 9-10 million, they have already done over 3.5 tests, you can get a test free basically. Sterilization goes almost every night. Social distancing is very much enforced, and surprisingly, even the citizens, the people who live here, they're very cooperative. So it's I mean, I say again, as a dual citizen, I love America. I love living there, but I feel like I'm lucky I'm not there now.
I was going to say, you probably choose not to be there if you could.
Yeah.
Stuart, give your organisation a plug. So Sight and Sound, you've obviously got a website. You do a lot of webinars, so you put a lot of work out that people could generally sort of consume, if you like, and get something from it. I've heard of some of your webcasts and your webinars. They're very, very good.
Thank you, Peter. By all means, people can get in touch with us on the web at Sight and Sound, that's all one word, .co.uk. And if you want to email us about, or if you want information on any of our webinars, you can send an email to sales@sightandsound.co.uk. And we generally run sessions once a week on a Wednesday afternoon in the UK. That's 2 p.m. in the UK, probably about 11 p.m. I think where you are, Peter. So yeah, we're very happy to chat to anyone, or if anybody wants to join, you would be more than welcome to do so.
Very convenient for night hours in Australia anyway. What about the name of your company? How did that come up? How did you get that? Was it your idea? I like Sight and Sound's name too, by the way, Stuart. Very clever.
Well, yeah, it was my idea. I started with another friend who was blind, and we moved together from America to the Middle East. But he had certain circumstances that made him not be able to continue. So he went back to America. And
the name? How did you come up with the name?
Oh, the name. Oh, Natik. Natik is in Arabic is the speaker. So if you have a Natik in your organization, he's the speaker of your organization. So it's from speech, and I thought it was a catchy name, fewer letters. So yeah.
Terrific. All right. And people can check out your website, and particularly for the MoTweet app. So it's MoTweet. For the MoTweet app, if people do want to try it, as I say, for 6 days free, and then or $15 US to purchase it. It's a one-off cost. Once you purchase it, you keep it for, I was going to say forever. That might be a long time, but for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you pay one time and then you get all the upgrades for free. So it's not like a recurring or subscription. It's one time, and people can visit natic.com, nattik.com /online shop. And they will, depending on the language of their system, so it's smart enough to realize, so it'll get the English side of the,
yeah. Well, I guess it's, very exciting to hear that a company like HIMS, I know the HIMS products are very, very popular in Australia. So with a company like Nactec working on, MoTweet and obviously the Twitter hemisphere, if you like, or the Twitter sphere at the moment, and maybe Facebook in the future, there could be some wonderful opportunities for people to really access that social media through the Polaris and the apps that Nactec are working on.
Yep.
And you're obviously very keen to hear to get feedback.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we really hope to because once we hear their feedback, we make if there are any challenges, we fix them. Some people might ask us for more features, we implement them, and others might ask for something that I just want to say something, because when we started the company, the entire company revolved around one product, a screen reader. But then we started having people coming in saying, and one guy came in and said, can you sell me talks? It was called Talix by the, I don't know if you remember it or not, but
on the phone, the Nokia phone, yeah.
Yes. So we got to know about Nokia, and I mean the Talix or talks, and then we forged the relationship with the company. We localized. See, that's the thing. I think the key to our success is being in contact with as many users as possible and hearing and listening to their requests.
Well, we're out of time this time, but now we've made contact with you, we may have you back another time to maybe when you get that Facebook up and running, after you talk to Mark, when he gives you the permission to get Facebook up and running, we might have to get you back to talk a bit more about it.
Would love to do that, Peter. I appreciate the opportunity.
And Stuart, for spotting older for us, so there's a spotter's fees check in the mail on the way to you.
Peter, I'll be looking forward to receive it. And again, many thanks for the opportunity. Great to speak to you.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, bye-bye.
That's Stuart Lawler from Sight and Sound, and also Aldi Hassim from Nactec, Nattiq, with the MoTweet app. So if you've got a Polaris and would like to try it out, you've got the details. If you missed any of them, you can always contact us. Well, huge thanks there to Stuart Lawler, all the way from Ireland, joining us on the program from Sight and Sound, and Alda Hassim, all the way from the United Arab Emirates, from the company called Nactec, Nattiq. Got to spell it because it's a little bit unusual. Great of them to have joined us all the way from their respective countries tonight. That is just about it. Before we go, a special mention to Barry Jarman, former Australian cricketer who sadly passed away during the week. Barry, very much involved with blind cricket in the early days in South Australia. Also a great advocate for people with disabilities. In a sense, well before his time. He was the person who got Nugget Reese involved with cricket and football. And I'm sure many people around Australia know of Nugget Reese. Sits next to the Australian cricket captain during test matches in Adelaide. So Barry Jarman was the person who sent Nugget on his way, as it were. So deepest sympathies, and a special mention to the great work that Barry Jarman has done. Also, before we go, our movie of the week, we can let you know that the next movie of the week at 8:30 Sunday night on SBS Viceland is The Voyage Home. So I think that's the fourth Star Trek movie. So you Star Trek is having a bit of a blowout. So that's at 8:30 on Viceland. But before then, at 4:50 on the main SBS channel, a show that I'm sure would really lend itself to audio description, the Great British Railway Journey. So it's 4:50 this coming Sunday on the main SBS channel with the audio description. So that will be very much worthwhile listening and looking out for. That is it for the program. Thanks again to Pam Green and Sam Rickard. You can get in touch with Sam through our Facebook page. VAR Adelaide is what to look for. Send Sam a message, keep him busy. But thank you, Pam and Sam, again for doing a great job putting the program to air. On behalf of Philip Vanderveer, Wendy McDougall, this is Peter Greco saying thank you for joining us. Back with you next week.